Hey everyone. Lately I've been getting a lot of requests on how to fully set up a Raptoreum CPU mining rig from start to finish. So that's what we're going to do today. So the reason I am building this rig today is one, a lot of you have requested, like I said before, a full build process from start to finish for Raptoreum rig. The other thing is I need a mining rig, a test bench, sitting here down in the basement for when I bring cards on back for repasting or troubleshooting, and I can test them here before I take them back to the crypto closet. And I have an old cheapy steel rig that I no longer use. So we're going to be using this as the base for everything. But for right now, let's get this out of the way and go over the 4 parts for this. Now, a lot of people can buy this kit from Micro Center, but a lot of people also don't have a Micro Center close enough for them to go. So I wanted to build this with the current prices at the time of making this video on Newegg. So this is everything I got from Newegg. I got the ASRock B450M Pro 4 Micro ATX motherboard, and this cost $69.99 on Newegg. I also got G.Skill Ripjaws 5 series, 2x4 gigabytes of 3200 megahertz RAM, $45. NVMe SSD. I like using them for mining rigs, whether it be GPU or CPU, but just find the cheapest one you pretty much can find. 256 gigabytes, $35. Worth the investment. And the 3900X CPU, discs cost $429.99 on Newegg. So this whole kit right here, you can build to mine Raptoreum for $579.96 shipped from Newegg at the time of me making this video. The only thing you're missing is a power supply, a case, which those things I'm going to be reusing. So that's not factored into this cost. This is the main bulk. So before we go and build it onto the rig, we're going to build it on top of the box. So let's get started with that. Now for me, I like to work from the lowest component up higher. So this way you don't bang into anything. Now most people will eventually go for the CPU first. Me? No, I go for the NVMe first because it's virtually flat. So let's install that first into our M.2 slot right here. Okay, M.2 right in here, goes on down, and one of your included screws from the motherboard box. There you go, hard drive installed. And here's our 3900X CPU. Right here, you're not going to see it on camera. There's a little triangle. Matches up with the triangle on the silk screen of the motherboard. Literally just drops right in there. You've just installed the CPU. Also included with the 3900X CPU is the Wraith Prism stock CPU cooler. Go ahead and take both of these cables out of here. Gently remove the bottom plastic. And it has pre-applied thermal paste. You can either opt to remove this and use your own thermal paste or use the original. Supposedly this gets very tacky and might be a problem removing it in the future. I have not had that issue and I'm going to use the original. Center it down, wiggle it back and forth a few times on top of the CPU to help spread that thermal paste. Start on this side without the lever, and we are going to get this clipped in down here, which takes a little bit of pressure. Right there. Turn it around. Underneath here it's the same deal. Right now it's in a locked position. Bring it down here. And the same deal. We're going to hook it onto this side. Now it's hooked. Bring it over. Takes a lot of pressure. There we go. It is latched. All the way down. This is your CPU fan header for this, just the fan itself. Depending upon which motherboard you get, you have to figure out which header you want to use here. On this motherboard, I believe it's this one. Plug it in, just tuck in the wires. Get it out of the way. Now on this side of the Wraith Prism cooler, you have a low and high speed setting for the fan. Always have this on high so you can control the fan speed in the BIOS. Simply bring it over to high. There you go. Now the two included cables is for RGB. If you don't want the RGB, you can stop right there and just skip forward to the next chapter. If you want RGB, simply pull these two pieces off here. This rubber, one, two. And here's your two connectors for power and RGB connection. The smaller of the two is for power. And that plugs into an available USB 2.0 slot. This one's for the RGB header. Now, on AMD motherboards, at least on the ASRoCs, you do have other RGB headers in white back down here. Up top here, this one says AMD Fan LED 1. If you want to have the full effect of the colors, use this header. So we're going to run this wire over and around. And whichever way the little arrow is on here matches up to a little arrow that's imprinted on this. That's your 12 volt plug in. There you go. And just reasonably tidy up the wires. Okay, last thing we need to do to this motherboard is add in the RAM. Now for Raptoreum, you can run a single stick of RAM. It's better to run two. There is a slight performance gain, however small it may be. If you're getting a motherboard that has 4 DIMM slots instead of 2, normally it's the second and fourth slot that you're going to populate with your RAM, but consult your motherboard manufacturer manual to figure out which are the best 2 spots to put the RAM into if you're only adding 2 sticks of RAM. Motherboard is now completed. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, next we're going to mount the motherboard into whichever frame you're going to be putting it into. For this one, I'm going to take out the center bar temporarily so we have better accessibility. Now, picking up your motherboard by both sides to properly support it, because now it's got some weight to it, go ahead and make sure you match up the correct holes for mounting the motherboard, taking care that there's no extra ones that could short out the bottom of the motherboard. Cool. So let's get the power supply in here now. The power supply we will be using today is an EVGA Supernova 750 watt 80 plus platinum power supply. Okay, run your 24-pin ATX cable. Add in your 4 plus 4 12-volt EPS power for the CPU itself. Plugs in right here. And once again, tidy up your wires, tie them out of the way so this way they don't accidentally get snagged on anything. Now, when building a CPU-only rig for mining Raptoreum, you do not need a GPU installed normally, but for the initial configuration in the BIOS, since the 3900X CPU does not have a built-in GPU, you do need a GPU so you can program the BIOS and get to it. In this case, we're just going to use a cheapy GT710 that I keep around just for occasions like this. I should just put that in this one. Okay, just add a power cable, networking, and I'm using a wireless keyboard and mouse. HDMI is connected into the GT710. Let's go ahead and turn on the back power. Motherboard will not turn on by itself. You're going to need to short out 2 pins. Look at your motherboard manual for over here. And find here, let's see here, power LED, power button. There we go. Power supply turned on. I do not have any. There we go. Kicked on. Let's start hitting the delete key. It might take about 30 seconds for it to boot the first time because it needs to learn the RAM and the CPU that is in this system. As you can see here, here's our ASRock B450M Pro 4 Revision 2 BIOS version 4.9. I'm not going to pay attention to that. AMD Ryzen 9 3900X 12-core processor. As you can see, our RAM is not set correctly. This is default. So let's go through all the settings that you need to do to get the best performance and efficiency out of your 3900X. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is mess with the RAM. So we're going to go down here. Now, depending upon the motherboard, you'll either see XMP or DOCP. They are the same. Click on that, and it should pick up your profile for your RAM. Click on that. It should automatically make the RAM voltage go from 1.2 to 1.35. Do not worry if it's red. It's supposed to be like that. That's all we're going to do with this reboot. Go all the way over to the end, save changes, and exit. Go back into the BIOS for the second time. And now you can see our RAM is now running at the correct speed. Now, before we overclock and undervolt the CPU, let's go to Advanced. Under ACPI configuration, suspend the RAM, disable that. On this motherboard, under onboard devices configuration, it might be in a different spot on a different manufacturer, you want to find restore on AC power loss. Normally it defaults to power off. You want to switch that to power on. This way, if you ever lose power, the second the power comes back on, the motherboard automatically turns back on, reboots, and starts mining again. While you're at it, if this is just mining, you can disable the onboard audio. You don't need it. Okay, we're also going to go over here to hardware monitor, and we're going to go to fantastic tuning. We're going to switch on over here. We're currently on all fans and go full speed. Go down to apply and exit. The next time we reboot, that CPU fan will be running at full speed all the time. CPU frequency and voltage change. We're going to go to manual. I prefer to run mine at 3.8 gigahertz. Rapid Mining prefers to run his at 3.6 gigahertz. Both are perfectly okay. Anything below 3.6 gigahertz, you're losing hash rate too much. Anything over 3.8 gigahertz, you're burning heat and you're not getting much increase at all. So it's best to do that. Most CPUs will run at 1 volt. If it doesn't run correctly and crashes, go up to 1.05 or 1.10. You should be stable by that point. I usually start at 1 volt. Leave the SoC voltage on auto. Same with this. Auto. 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 Now we're going to go over to AMD overclocking under Advanced. Accept that you're going to brick your computer. No, just accept. Eco mode. Make sure it's disabled. LN2 mode. Disable. Never saw this feature. You can play with it if you want to. I'm just going to leave it disabled. This is new to this motherboard. SoC and Uncore overclock mode. Leave it alone. It should be enabled. Here's the main thing. Precision Boost Overdrive. You want to disable it. And save changes and exit. So now we need to make a USB key so we can install HiveOS. Okay, now also this tutorial assumes that you already have a HiveOS account and you are logged into your farm. Once you have that done, go up to the top where the plus sign is, and you want to add a worker. We want to add a rig. We want to install new. This is the operating system that your computer is currently running on. I am using Linux. I run Linux Mint. If you're running Windows, select Windows. Click download. Downloading the newest version here. Okay, we have the base image downloaded. So now, at least for Linux, we need to download a separate program. If we were in Windows, everything is built together into one installer now, which is really nice. But the old style still works, which is Balana Etcher. I already have this downloaded, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. So we're going to write the HiveOS to USB or SSD. For right now, we're going to write the USB, and then we will transfer it to the built-on NVMe SSD that we installed earlier. Now we're going to install the image onto a Micro Center 32 gig USB pen drive. Okay, so we're going to flash from File, HiveOS, the latest stable we just downloaded. Select the target, and it will see the 32 gig. I'm going to select that. We're going to flash it. Linux, you need to put your password in. Everything's permission based. Give it a few minutes to burn that image to the pen drive. Okay, we are now done, so let's close that window. Next option, right? Oh, we've done that. So now we need to download the configuration file. So let's click on this. Okay, next stop is download your configuration file. Already click download. Already downloaded here the rig.configuration file. Before you move it over to the Hive root folder, eject the pen drive and put it back in. Best practice. Once that's done, open up your file manager, whether you're in Linux or Windows. Find your rig.configuration file you downloaded. I'm going to cut it right here, Hive root, or Hive. This is where you want it, just Hive, because it makes two partitions on that. And we're just going to paste it. That's it. Now we're going to eject everything again. Last step, insert drive to your rig. Connect your USB drive or SSD drive to your rig. If necessary, run your rig in BIOS mode. We shouldn't have to do that because this is a brand new build and there's nothing on that NVMe SSD. It should automatically boot onto the pen drive. So let's get it out of the computer. Install it into the back of the motherboard. We're also going to remove the video card as we no longer need it, and we should be able to just power it on and it should auto start. Give it a few seconds. There we go, because we set in the BIOS for it to automatically turn on. So now we're going to wait for a few minutes for it to appear in HiveOS. Okay, and the new rig shows up here with some weird name. So let's go into that rig. First thing I'm going to do is change the name. Since this is a test rig, crash test dummy is definitely going to be what I'm going to call it. And we can see here, here's our motherboard. Here's our 24 threads on our AMD Ryzen 9 3900X 12-core CPU. You can see the CPU is not working hard right now. It's only at 30 degrees. It's not doing anything. Okay, so now that we are booted and running, what we need to do is copy over this HiveOS installation from the flash drive to the NVMe. So what we're going to do, we're going to go up here to Remote Access and click Hive Shell Start. Give it about 10 to 30 seconds. Click the little box here now. And this is going to open us up a command line over there. So what we want to do is, I've also made a video for this by itself. I will link it up top here somewhere. we want to do an fdisk-l. And we can see here NVMe 0 and 1. That is our NVMe drive. So we'll go back over here, transfer the image using this command. So we're going to go copy this. We're going to paste this on into here, but we need to edit it before we hit enter. Do not hit enter yet. So what we need to do, if is the device from which we will transfer our flash drive. Of is the device where we will transfer to. So if it's going to be right here, SDA. So if we need to change this down to SDA, you don't need the 1, 2, 3, or 4. And the other part, the of, is where we're going to write the information to. Now we're going to be writing it to /dev /NVMe 0 and 1. NVMe 0 and 1. Now you can hit enter. It's going to take a few minutes. It's literally copying the full contents of the flash drive over to our NVMe drive. Okay, once it's done, we can go ahead and close this window and the instructions. You may leave. Close this little pop-up. What we're going to do is go Power Actions and Shut Down. Wait for the rig to shut down, and then we're going to pull the flash drive out from the USB port. Okay, so now we can see we are running off of the NVMe drive, but at the same time we only have 2.7 gigabytes of free space. That's perfectly okay, but we're going to expand it. Once again, let's go to Hive Shell Start again, click on the little box, and we're going to run this command right here, disk-expand. Wait 5 seconds, and it will automatically expand and use the full amount of space of your NVMe drive. There, it's done. Let's exit back out. Close the little window. And wait about 30 seconds, and we'll see this jump considerably. There we go. We are now at 231 gigabytes of free space. One other thing we need to do before we mess with the flight sheet is update to the latest version. This way we make sure we get the latest version of the Raptoreum CPU mining software. So let's click on this and then reboot after complete. Okay, now everything is updated and ready to do Raptoreum mining. So we're going to go to Flight Sheets, and I'm going to copy off, or rather duplicate, one of my existing flight sheets and purpose it for this. So let's take this one, we're going to duplicate it, and it is right here flashing. We're going to edit it. We're going to take this and we're going to change this to crash test dummy RTM. Now we're going to delete the ergo because there are no GPUs on this system. Now, depending upon where you're mining, pick your wallet, set that all up, configure a miner. I am mining to 011 data. You can pick whichever pool you want to, but for me, for them, I need to change this to crash test dummy. 24 threads, tune full equals true. As of version 1.22, this takes about 3.5 hours to tune now. It's only done once, and you can leave this comment in there. Donation 0, don't worry, that just puts it at the minimum amount of donation for the developers of the software. That's it. It does not actually bring it all the way down to 0. You're not cheating them out of anything. Make sure you're on the GR miner fork, the latest, and Ghostwriter algorithm. Apply changes, update, and now let's send this to the moon. Go back to overview, and we can see it getting ready. In the meantime, just to see how it's working, once again, let's start a Hive shell. Now I like using the command motd watch. This is great when you have multiple miners running at the same time. In this case, we only have one. Now you can see here, just finished downloading the mining software. It's found my CPU, could not load tune.config file or underscore config file. So starting the full tune, 222 minutes. At which point right now it is actually tuning for this time period. It's trying to get the best speed possible. You will not be mining to the pool during this time. Afterwards, it will start mining to your pool. Only needs to be done once. So let it sit for a while. If we go back, we can see all of our threads running. We can see their hash rates, and we can see the CPU is heating up a little bit. But if you don't undervolt it at 1 volt like we did, this temperature will get really close to 80 degrees C because you're running too much watts and you're not gaining any hash rate. So with it set that, the Wraith Prism cooler is perfect for this. You don't need an aftermarket cooler. So that's basically how you make a CPU mining rig for Raptoreum. Now at the same time, I can also put the bar back on top here that we took off earlier, and I can hang 1 or 2 GPU risers on here for when I want to do testing. So that's why this is a dual purpose unit. You can build it to your specifications that you need. So thanks for watching. Any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below. Also, consider coming and saying hi to us at the Mining Misfit Discord. The link for that will also be down in the video description, as well as I will leave a link for the Raptoreum Discord. They will have a lot more resources because not everyone's going to use a 3900X CPU. A lot more people there will be able to help you with the different CPUs and what settings you should be at. But this is a great primer to get you started. So thanks for watching, spread this around the community, and I will see you on the next video.